Welcome to another edition of The Collection. My name is Carla Bisong, owner of Bisong Art Gallery located in downtown Houston, Texas. Today we are meeting with Anika Jackson. Anika, for allowing us into your beautiful home.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for being here.
So before we talk a little bit about your art collection and a little of your thought process and why you selected some of the pieces you selected, I wanted to tell the audience that may not know a little about you. In your earlier years, you had a little dabble into club promoting and music tours, and now you have a big hand in organizing exquisite galas and charitable events. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. I was always interested in events and hosting and making really beautiful experiences for people. From a very, very early age, my birthday parties when I was in elementary school to having a 7th grade party for all the 7th graders in my junior high and DJing at school parties and the whole gamut. So it was very natural for me to progress into being a club promoter. I grew up in Kansas. Yes, there were clubs in Kansas. And when I was in high school, I lived in Lawrence and then Tecumseh, and I would drive into Kansas City every weekend to go see my friends and go to the clubs. And a DJ wanted me to start promoting. So I did, started promoting, then started throwing raves, then had my own club nights where I was a promoter and worked with different DJs. Moved into Chicago to do the same thing. Then moved to Los Angeles, worked there in club promoting and marketing, started working for a music magazine, and really parlayed that natural organic progression into a career. And eventually worked for a dance music magazine, and we had a summer tour bus, DJs, was flying to New York to throw parties once a month, winter music conference. And then I got to the point where I felt like it was time to give back. My mother was a social worker growing up, and so she exposed me very early on to giving back and to helping people. And I actually did my first charity event at a club when I was in my early 20s. So it was a perfect time to start getting into learning about the nonprofit world. I joined Junior League in Los Angeles and really cut my teeth on getting very in-depth training on how to be a good nonprofit board member, how to organize a community partner event, whether it was a fundraiser or a project for a community partner. It's all about the mission. You know, you can have all the entertainment, all the fashion shows, all the people, but if people don't understand why they're there and what the money is going towards, and there's not that transparency and fun in the mission, then it doesn't mean anything. So we started Philanthropic Fits to do just that, and so it's been a blast. And what we found is that took us into another world of people wanting us to talk about their brands and help connect their brands to nonprofits. So it's been a really exciting couple of years, and that's what led me to get involved in nonprofits.
Wonderful. Well, I definitely have followed and seen a lot of the work that you do, and so you're definitely a hard worker.
Thank you.
And I mean, it's amazing. So diving a little bit into when you first decided or you purchased an original piece of art. Did you do a little research and say, I'm going to start being an art collector, or did something move you and that was just, I have to have it?
The first original piece of art that I purchased, my father purchased for me when I was 17 and we went to a student art show. He was a college professor, so he was always taking us to really interesting cultural experiences. And there was a piece that I was really drawn to, so he bought it for me. And that was my first piece of art. Now, it did not survive my first apartment in college with roommates, but it definitely struck a chord of, wow, art is so beautiful and it's so subjective.
Is there a theme that when you're building your collection, or are you anything I'm drawn to, I just get it and I don't care if it fits?
It's definitely the latter. My process of buying art is very organic.
Okay.
I would say some people have an addiction to shoes. Some people like to get handbags. I like to purchase art. So definitely a piece has to speak to me, but I also very much believe in supporting local artists or people with local ties. I love Houston. I moved here almost 6 years ago from Los Angeles, and I really find this to be the most welcoming, loving city, and they really want to help support other people who are doing the same kinds of things. And so I like to give back to the artists I've purchased because they speak to me very personally. For instance, I bought a huge Kelley Devine oil for my 40th birthday. I bought a piece from Gonzo. It's a 3 plexiglass graffiti piece that says Libertad, and I proudly hung it up when I got divorced. I have another piece that says Robert Hodge took a big piece of wood and carved the words "Love me or leave me alone," and that was another post-divorce piece. Then I have pieces that speak to my roots in Kansas. You know, and I like to find a mix of pieces that are parts of the series or prints, and then pieces that are original.
Great. I'm so glad that you shared with us that many of the pieces are connected emotionally to certain aspects of your life, what you're going through in the moment, because that's so important. And I have many conversations with artists that aren't sure if they want to include personal information on why they're creating what they're creating, or if they should let the art speak for itself.
It's important that artists share their truth and their story because it helps make the connection between the artist and the art buyer. For instance, I have several Kelley Devines, and hearing the story about how her creative process and some of the things she went through that you can see when you look at her pieces, you know. There was one that I bought from her that speaks to me because of my music background, right? And it's a piece of a woman with a mask, and I forget what the title is off the top of my head, but it's about music and it's about that process, and so I have to own that.
Good.
Yeah.
So very, very important artists that many artists will say, well, the whoever wants it, they're going to want it if they want it, or they may not want it. But hearing your story or hearing why you created it has a real connection between creating it and the person that obtains it. So I encourage many artists. I know it's a lot of people want to title something untitled, and I say, but you know, you can give so much meaning to a piece by just putting a title on it and telling the story behind it.
Exactly.
In the event that there's an emergency in your home and you can only grab 1 or 2 pieces of art to take with you, which ones would they be and why?
So if I had to grab one piece of art, it would be a little pottery that sits on my fireplace mantle. And that art piece itself is not important to me, but it contains the ashes of my grandparents.
Okay.
And so that might be a little morbid and weird, but that would be what I would select.
Okay.
And then if I could still grab one other thing, I'd probably select one of my daughter's pieces of art. I haven't framed all of her stuff because she's quite prolific, but we do have her pottery around and different pieces throughout the house.
Wonderful. Well, again, thank you for allowing us to come into your home. And I love to have conversations. I love for people to come in and really talk, and we can explain the art, but it's always great to get a background story on the artist and the buyer. So
well, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you again for joining in to another episode of The Collection. My name is Bisong, owner of Bisong Art Gallery.